Today I wanted to review this book by Lembke called Dopamine. Why our addiction to pleasure is causing us pain. This book explores the role of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, in driving addiction and compulsive behaviors. Our brain has a balance. On one side has pain, on the other one has pleasure. And the catch is that this balance wants to remain level. It needs to have an equilibrium. If this balance is always tipped to the pleasure side, your brain is going to get, by default, this balance to get level. And how do you get this pain-pleasure balance to get level? If you basically tip it on the pleasure side, you're going to experience pain. And that's the pain you experience, for example, when you sit home all day and you basically experience pleasure because maybe you are watching TV, watching a Netflix series, you scroll through social media, and technically you did something that made you happy. You didn't work, you ate all day, you didn't go to the gym, you didn't go for a run, you didn't go outside for a walk, you didn't put any stress on your body. So basically what you did, it was just pure pleasure. This scale that we have in our brain was basically tipped on the pleasure side all day. So the brain by default is trying to get you to the pain side just to level this balance. You want to have this balance, this scale in equilibrium. So that explains why at the end of the day we feel so empty, so tired. Why do we feel tired if we just sit at home all day without doing anything? This book explains it in very basic terms. Somebody would try to find some ways can I trick the system? Can I actually bypass this scale thing? You can't. That's how our brain works. So you need to work with it, not against it. So how do you actually help this? The only possible way to help this is to experience pain. And you need to experience pain daily. So people that lament this thing oh, well, I don't want to feel pain. Well, you're going to feel pain anyways. That's how our brain works. So either you experience pain or you experience pain. You just choose what kind of pain you want to experience. Do you want to experience the pain of not doing anything at the end of the day? Or do you want to experience pain of working out? Working for your 9-to-5 job, giving the maximum for your company, working on your physique, resisting eating fast food or sugary foods, and actually having a balanced diet. You choose what kind of pain you want, but I guess that maybe if you know this thing, the best pain is the one that you have from working out, from dieting, from studying for a difficult exam, reading books even. Reading books is not fun, honestly. It takes some effort. It's not as easy to just passively maybe scrolling through Instagram or a blog post or even just watching a Netflix series where you just sit down and do anything. You're just watching a TV screen. You're not actually using your brain actively to do anything. If you think about this, why some people experience happiness, why some people feel, for example, depressed, that is it. People that get depressed are the people that constantly try to push on the pleasure side without actually pushing on the pain side consciously. What they're going to get is immense pain. You can see here, for example, based on what kind of things you use to trigger dopamine, you're going to get bigger or lower dopamine releases. Percentage-wise, on this side, you can see chocolate is 55% dopamine release, sex is 100%, nicotine is 150%, cocaine is 225%, and amphetamine, so heavy drugs, is 1000%. And that's why people, the more the dopamine release, the more the pain you're going to experience after. If you, for example, have a cocaine addiction, heavy drugs addiction, why these people are really hard to get out of these addictions? Because they're tipping the scale much more than people that just for example, eating chocolate or having sex. So get the scale, the balance, to be in the equilibrium state that should actually be, that actually the brain wants physiologically, is much harder than somebody that maybe just has like a diet issue or a dopamine release, which is much lower in percentage based on other people. If you think about it, this thing is huge in importance because it explains so many more things. For example, if you go and see why millionaires and billionaires, despite having all these things, some of them may still feel pain and they don't feel like a full satisfaction with their lives. This is it. Even if you have a supercar, you buy a really nice $10 million home or something like that, you're going to experience some pleasure, but the scale wants to get back into original equilibrium state. So that's why all these millionaires, after you buy, you purchase, like the dopamine release is not infinite, lasts for a short amount of time. You see, once the pattern, the more money you make, the scale, like the balance that you have in your brain is the same. It doesn't change. If you push on the pleasure side, you will need to get pain on the other side. It's an equilibrium that we have to maintain in our brain. For example, nowadays you see like all this cold plunge stuff. You see like getting very popular, like this sauna, like high temperatures, low temperatures. Why is this getting much more traction nowadays? Because especially with people that have a lot of money. If you have all this money, like why would you like put yourself into freezing water or get you into high temperatures, into stressing levels of high temperatures in the sauna, for example? This actually triggers your dopamine levels. This makes you feel pain, so you can actually feel pleasure after you finish that experience. So keeps actually your brain dopamine levels in an equilibrium state. So even, for example, if you, like after you work out, you feel that pleasure. Like you feel that you put yourself through pain by working out because you know that after, not only you're going to get all the benefits from exercise, health and aesthetic benefits, your mind is going to get that dopamine levels in an equilibrium state again. So the more you push on the pain side, you're going to get pleasure. As you can see, all the successful people on the planet that maybe you admire in your specific area of interest, like would it be, I don't know, academic success or maybe business success, health success, whatever. All these people, like 99% of them, or I may say 100% at this point, all of them, they had to push on pain to get the levels of pleasure that they got nowadays. You can see even in going back in history, I had this quote from Leonardo da Vinci, which is my favorite, and I try to live by this quote. They say it was attributed to Leonardo when he was about to die and he was on his deathbed. He said, "As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so life well used brings happy death." What he's trying to say with this quote is that he was working every day. Like he was pushing, he was squeezing every minute out of the day. It's like he was trying to make sure that what he did during the day, like every hour, was spent toward working on his projects, on his work of art. That's why we have so much material from Leonardo da Vinci. We have lots of notes, we have lots of projects, military projects, we have lots of anatomy drawings. We have like his thoughts on how anatomy actually works. And this was so advanced at the time. Another quote that follows that ties, in my opinion, directly to dopamine, it's this concept of discipline. You will never have greater or lesser dominion than that over yourself. The height of a man's success is gauged by his self-mastery, the depth of his failure by his self-abandonment, and this law is the expression of eternal justice. He who cannot establish dominion over himself will have no dominion over others. Leonardo da Vinci. And when I read it, I actually wrote it down and saved it like amongst my favorite quotes. This is so true. Even people that are leaders, for example, that want to have a business, you need to have a team. And to actually have a dominion over this team, to actually be a leader, you need to have, first of all, dominion over yourself. You can't have dominion over others if you can't have a dominion over yourself. This comes all by your ability to push on the pain side of the dopamine balance. Another important thing on why this book was so great is that Lembke at the end actually talks about how these people were actually recovering from their addictions and what was the first main factor that actually helped them to move forward. And that is being honest. The moment you have an addiction, you have to be honest about that addiction. And she went into really great lengths to explain why honesty was such an important roadblock for many people, because the moment you start lying, actually that's my interpretation at least. When you lie, you are actually pushing on the pleasure side, you're not pushing on the pain side. Usually when you're honest, most of the time, you're pushing on the pain side. Like being honest most of the time actually causes some pain. Like being honest is not, like telling a lie, it's easy, like it gives you almost pleasure. Like lying to someone in order to have like some benefits maybe for yourself, or because you want to avoid some bad things happening to you. And when you lie, we don't like people that lie. Everybody, like if you had to choose, you would choose someone who has high integrity. High integrity is someone that actually never lies, like that actually tells the truth, even if it's painful. And most of the time, telling the truth is painful, especially when you have an addiction. Some of the people inside the book that had, for example, alcohol addiction, they actually give up and they started working towards their alcohol addiction the moment that they actually were honest about the fact that they were still drinking. And yeah, that's some food for thought if you think about it. I actually wanted to read you an example of one of the patients of Dr. Lembke that he was trying to recover from cannabis. She says, Muhammad was smart, so why couldn't he figure out that every time he smoked, he wouldn't be able to stick to his self-imposed time limits? Because once he started using cannabis, he wasn't governed by reason, he was governed by the pain-pleasure balance. Even one joint created a state of wanting not easily influenced by logic. Under the influence, he could no longer objectively evaluate the immediate rewards of smoking against their long-term counterparts. I hope you enjoyed this review. I really want to make this a habit of reviewing all the books that I have. And the next one is going to be Breathe by Rickson Gracie. A really crazy book. I really loved it. And that's the book that actually helped me go through my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey, which is a martial art that I really wanted to start way sooner. This book was recommended by my teacher, Riccardo Ricciardi, and his black belt teacher, Saverio. And yeah, see you in the next video.